My name is Rachel Monroe, and I'm 29 years old. If you'd asked me a year ago who I trusted most in this world, I would have said my brother. Without hesitation. I would have told you that family is everything, that we might fight and argue, but at the end of the day, blood ties meant loyalty. I don't believe that anymore. It all started the summer my family decided to hold a big reunion. My parents were excited. It had been years since we were all together under one roof. My brother Jason and his wife Marissa were flying in from Texas. My cousins from Chicago, my aunt from Florida, everyone was coming. For once, the Monroe house was going to be full of laughter, food, and noise again. I wasn't exactly thrilled. Reunions always made me feel a little out of place. I was the single one, the career girl as my aunt liked to say. No husband, no kids, just a small apartment and a bank account I'd worked tirelessly to build up from scratch. Still, I showed up because that's what you do for family. The first night, everything felt warm. The house smelled of Mom's famous roast. Cousins were catching up in the backyard, kids running around on the grass. Jason swept in with Marissa at his side, both of them loud and glowing, as if they were the stars of the whole show. Rachel. Jason boomed, hugging me with one arm while holding a beer in the other. Look at you, all grown up and still bossing people around at work, huh? I laughed politely, though there was always that undercurrent with him, the little digs he disguised as jokes. Marissa kissed my cheek, her perfume cloyingly sweet. Still single? She asked with a too bright smile. I swallowed. Still saving money. I didn't mean it as a jab, but Marissa's eyes flicked knowingly. Jason chuckled. Yeah, Rachel's probably got a fortune stashed away somewhere. Too bad, she doesn't know how to enjoy it. Everyone laughed. I forced a smile, but inside, something pinched. My savings weren't just numbers in a bank account. They were my lifeline. Years of skipped vacations, side hustles, and long nights at work. I'd been putting money aside for a down payment on my first home, something I'd dreamed about since college. I didn't realize then that Jason and Marissa's laughter had teeth. The days of the reunion rolled on. Every night, the house was full of noise and chatter. And every night, Jason and Marissa drank too much, laughed too loud, and dropped little comments that made me uneasy. You know Rachel never spends a dime, Marissa told my cousin at dinner. She probably counts her pennies before bed. Jason smirked. Hey, maybe she'll finally buy a house and we can all crash there next time. Everyone chuckled, but I caught the way Marissa's eyes lingered on me, sharp and calculating. By the third day, the reunion buzz had started to fade. I was exhausted from sleeping on the couch, from the constant questions about when I'd settle down, from Jason and Marissa's endless teasing. I decided to slip out one afternoon to run some errands and breathe in silence. When I came back, Jason and Marissa were sitting at the kitchen table, whispering. They went quiet the second I walked in. What are you two plotting? I asked, forcing a light tone. Jason grinned. Just talking about old times. But the way Marissa's lips curved told me otherwise. That night, I went upstairs to grab my wallet from my purse and froze. My bag was unzipped. At first, I thought maybe I'd left it open. But when I checked inside, something fell off. My wallet was there, but the little envelope where I kept my emergency cash gone. My stomach dropped. I tore through the bag, through my suitcase, even the couch cushions, but it was nowhere. Jason's laugh echoed from downstairs, loud and careless. I wanted to storm down and accuse him, but doubt clawed at me. What if I misplaced it? What if I was being paranoid? I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept circling back to Marissa's smirk, Jason's jokes about my savings, the whispering in the kitchen. The next morning, my worst fears came true. I logged into my online banking and saw withdrawals I didn't make. Thousands gone. My throat closed. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone. My entire savings account, the one I'd spent years building, was empty. And when I stumbled into the living room, pale and trembling, Jason and Marissa were sitting on the couch. Jason looked up, grinning. Morning, sis. You look like you've seen a ghost. Marissa sipped her coffee, her eyes glittering. Or maybe you just saw your bank account. They laughed. They actually laughed. My legs went weak. My voice broke as I whispered, You stole from me? Jason leaned back, stretching his arms behind his head. Stole? That's a strong word. Think of it as redistributing. You've been hoarding that money for years. It's about time someone put it to good use. Marissa smirked. Besides, you don't need all that money. You don't even have a family to spend it on. The room spun. I wanted to scream, to hit them, to call the police. But all I could do was stand there, shaking, as my brother, my own blood, and his wife laughed at the ruins of everything I had worked for. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I don't know how long I stood frozen in that living room, watching Jason and Marissa laugh like they'd just pulled off the prank of the century. My chest burned, my palms were slick, and my mind refused to believe what I was seeing. My whole life savings, I whispered, my throat raw. You took everything. Jason's grin didn't falter. Relax, Ratch. You'll make it back. You're good at saving. Think of it as motivation to keep grinding. Marissa tilted her head, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Don't be so dramatic. It's just money. Just money. The words sliced through me. I thought about the double shifts I'd worked after college, the vacations I skipped while friends posted photos from Cancun, the nights I ate ramen so I could put away an extra $50. That account wasn't just numbers, it was my future. My dream of finally buying a house, of building a life that was mine. I wanted to scream, to shake them until they understood what they'd stolen. But my voice came out cracked and small. You can't just take what doesn't belong to you. Jason leaned forward, his smirk hardening. What are you going to do about it? Call the cops? Tell Mom and Dad? He chuckled. Go ahead. You really want the whole family to know you don't trust your own brother? The smugness in his tone made bile rise in my throat. He thought I wouldn't dare. He thought I'd stay silent because family reputation was more important than justice. And the worst part? For a moment I almost did. I stumbled upstairs, my vision blurred with tears, and locked myself in the guest room. I sat on the bed, hugging my knees, my phone clutched in my hand. My banking app still showed the empty account, the withdrawals clear as day. My savings, years of sacrifice, wiped out in the span of one family reunion. I thought about calling the police, but the image of Mom's face stopped me. She'd always said, family fights, but family stays together. What would she think if her two children were dragged into a legal war? My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. Keep your mouth shut, sis. No one needs to know. We'll pay you back someday. Maybe. Followed by a laughing emoji. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. Downstairs, laughter erupted from the kitchen. The family was gathering for lunch, blissfully unaware that their son and daughter-in-law had just gutted me alive. I pressed my forehead against my knees, the sound of their voices drifting up the stairs like poison. What was I supposed to do? Pretend everything was fine? Smile while they paraded around, full of food and drinks, while my life collapsed in silence? No. I couldn't. That afternoon, I forced myself to go downstairs. My legs felt like lead, my face stiff from dried tears, but I walked into the kitchen where everyone sat around the long table. Mom was serving pasta, Dad pouring iced tea. Jason and Marissa sat across from each other, whispering and smirking. Rachel. Mom beamed. There you are. Sit, the food's getting cold. I slid into a chair, my stomach churning. The smell of garlic and basil, usually comforting, turned my insides sour. Jason raised his glass. To family, he said loudly. Everyone cheered, glasses clinking. Everyone but me. I stared at him, my brother, my blood, and I realized the reunion wasn't a celebration. I thought it was. It was a stage. And Jason was performing. The conversation around the table blurred, voices mixing into a dull hum. My eyes stayed locked on Jason and Marissa as they laughed, as though nothing had happened. They had stolen everything I had, and now they were stealing the spotlight, too. Finally, Dad noticed my silence. Rachel, you okay? You've hardly touched your food. Every eye turned to me. Heat rushed to my cheeks. My throat tightened. Jason smirked, daring me to speak. I opened my mouth and closed it again. How could I tell them? How could I break Mom's heart in front of everyone? She'd planned this reunion for months. And here I was, sitting on a secret that could shatter the entire weekend. I'm fine, I said weakly, forcing a smile. Just tired. The conversation moved on, but my insides boiled. Jason leaned back in his chair, triumphant, his smirk a knife twisting in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet except for the occasional creak of floorboards. I paced the guest room, my mind a storm. The police would ask for proof, and I had it: bank records, withdrawal logs, even Jason's smug text. But filing a report meant turning the reunion into a crime scene, meant putting Mom and Dad through hell. At 2 a.m., I crept downstairs for water. That's when I saw Jason and Marissa in the kitchen. They didn't see me. Jason was holding a wad of cash, counting it with a grin. Marissa leaned against the counter, sipping wine. Can you believe how easy that was? Jason chuckled. She practically handed it to us. Marissa smirked. Pathetic, really. All those years of saving, and now it's ours. Rage exploded in my chest. I wanted to storm in, grab the cash, scream until the whole house woke up. But I froze, hidden in the shadows, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Jason stuffed the money into his backpack and zipped it shut. She won't do anything. Rachel's too scared to rock the boat. Marissa laughed softly. And even if she does, who's going to believe her? Everyone knows she's dramatic. The words burned. Dramatic. That's how they saw me. That's how they justified it. I backed away, my heart pounding. Upstairs, I collapsed onto the bed, shaking. I knew then that silence wasn't an option. If I let them get away with this, it would destroy me. But I also knew I couldn't just blurt it out at breakfast. No. I needed to be careful. Smart. Because Jason was right about one thing. If I confronted him without proof in front of everyone, he'd twist it. He'd make me look crazy, dramatic, paranoid. And I'd lose more than my savings. I'd lose my family's trust. So I made a decision. I would gather everything. Every piece of evidence. The bank statements, the withdrawal logs, the text messages, and now what I'd overheard in the kitchen. I'd put it all together, and when the moment was right, I'd show everyone exactly who Jason and Marissa really were. And when I did, their laughter would die in their throats. The morning after I overheard Jason and Marissa laughing in the kitchen, I looked at them differently. Before, I'd seen my brother and his wife as cruel opportunists who thought they were clever. But now I saw something sharper. Arrogance. They believed they had me cornered, that I'd stay silent forever. That arrogance would be their undoing. Breakfast was the same chaotic scene it had been every day of the reunion. Kids running in and out of the kitchen, Mom bustling around with her endless trays of food, cousins talking over each other. And in the middle of it all sat Jason and Marissa, laughing like royalty among peasants. I sat across the table from them, forcing myself to stay calm as Jason winked at me over his glass of orange juice. My fists clenched under the table, but I smiled politely, saying nothing. They thought they'd broken me. But what they didn't know was that I'd made a decision. I was going to expose them. Not with wild accusations or angry shouting, but with undeniable proof. After breakfast, I slipped away to the upstairs office, the same room where I'd found Dad's old files years ago when I was a kid. It was the only place in the house with a working printer and scanner. I shut the door, locked it, and pulled out my phone. The bank app was still open to the withdrawals. I took screenshots of everything, the dates, the amounts, the account balance plummeting to zero. I emailed them to myself, then printed copies. Next, I pulled up Jason's text message. Keep your mouth shut, sis. No one needs to know. We'll pay you back someday. Maybe. Followed by the laughing emoji. I screenshotted that too and printed it. As the printer hummed, spitting out each page, my heart raced. With every piece of paper, I felt stronger. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was building my case. But I needed more. I thought back to the night before, to the sound of Jason counting money in the kitchen. I hadn't captured it, but maybe I could. That afternoon, while everyone was outside playing volleyball, I slipped into the living room and propped my phone on a shelf, the camera angled toward the kitchen. I turned on the voice recorder and hit record. Then I waited. Hours later, when the house quieted down and Jason and Marissa returned inside, I stayed upstairs, pretending to read. My heart pounded as I listened to their voices drift up from below. Marissa laughed. She still hasn't said a word. Told you she wouldn't. Jason snorted. Rachel's all bark, no bite. She'll just mope around until the reunion's over, and then go back to her boring little life. Marissa's voice lowered, but I caught the words. She looked sick this morning. Almost feel bad. Jason chuckled. Don't. She's always been dramatic. Besides, what's she going to do? Call the cops on her own brother? She wouldn't dare. The sound of them laughing filled the recording. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't help smiling grimly. This was it. The proof I needed. Later, I retrieved my phone and replayed the recording, making sure their voices were clear. Every word was there. Their laughter, their cruelty, their arrogance. I uploaded it to a secure folder and backed it up in 3 different places. I wasn't going to let them delete my evidence if they somehow got to my phone. By the time dinner rolled around, I was armed with more proof than I'd dared to hope for. But I wasn't ready to reveal it yet. Not until the entire family was gathered. Not until Jason and Marissa were at their most smug, most certain they had gotten away with everything. Because when I exposed them, I wanted it to hit like a bomb. At dinner, Jason and Marissa were in rare form. Jason told loud, exaggerated stories about his business deals, making himself out to be a genius. Marissa bragged about shopping trips, slipping in little digs about how not everyone has the taste for luxury. Every time they laughed, I clenched my teeth. But I kept my head down, pretending to pick at my food, pretending to be small. Let them think they'd won. The reunion stretched on, each day heavier than the last. I kept gathering, documenting. I checked my bank statements every morning, printed copies of every update. I saved Jason's texts and even started recording my own voice memos detailing what I'd seen and heard. Meanwhile, Jason and Marissa grew bolder. They whispered less and joked more openly. One afternoon, I caught Marissa in the living room with my cousin Claire. You know, Rachel's always been kind of a downer, Marissa said with a smirk. All that saving and planning. What's the point if you never enjoy it? Money's meant to be spent, right? Claire laughed awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. I stepped into the room, my face carefully blank. Funny you should say that, Marissa. Some people would call it stealing, not spending. Marissa's smile faltered for just a second before she plastered it back on. Oh, Rachel, always so serious. Jason appeared then, slinging his arm around her shoulder. Don't mind her, Claire. My sister's always been dramatic. You should have seen her as a kid, crying if she lost a board game. They laughed together. Claire shifted uncomfortably and excused herself. As soon as we were alone, Jason leaned in, his voice low. Careful, Ratch. You don't want to embarrass yourself. I met his eyes, steady for the first time. Not me. I let the words hang. You. For a moment his smirk faltered. Then he scoffed and walked away. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my chest tight but steady. I was close. So close. The reunion was winding down, and soon everyone would be gathered one last time. That would be my moment. I pictured the scene in my head. The long table, the laughter, the wine glasses clinking. And then me, standing up, laying the evidence out for everyone to see. Their voices on the recording. The screenshots. The withdrawals. Jason and Marissa's laughter choking in their throats. The image fueled me. But even as I planned, a part of me grieved. This wasn't just about money. This was about my brother, the boy who used to share ice cream with me on hot summer nights, who walked me to school when I was scared. That boy was gone. The man sitting across from me at family dinners, grinning as he pocketed my future, wasn't my brother anymore. He was a stranger. And soon, everyone would see it too. The reunion was winding down, and I knew time was running out. If I didn't expose Jason and Marissa soon, they'd slip back to Texas with every dollar I had, and a smug story about how gullible their dramatic sister had been. I couldn't let that happen. But I also couldn't just blurt it out.
Not yet.
They'd twist it, make me look unstable. Jason was charming when he wanted to be, and Marissa had that sharp tongue that could turn any accusation back on the accuser.
No.
If I was going to do this, I had to be calculated. I had to let the truth speak so loudly that no one could deny it. Mom was already planning a big farewell dinner for the last night. "Everyone together one more time," she said, her face glowing with the joy of having all her children and grandchildren under one roof. She had no idea what was simmering beneath the surface. That dinner would be my stage. The days leading up to it dragged on like a cruel countdown. I kept my distance from Jason and Marissa, but they didn't seem to notice or care. If anything, they seemed bolder. One afternoon, I found Marissa in the guest bathroom, leaning close to the mirror to fix her lipstick. She caught my reflection in the glass and smirked. "Still sulking, Rachel?" she asked lightly. You should really loosen up. Life's more fun when you don't cling so tightly to things. Things like trust." I shot back, my voice cold. Her smirk widened. "Trust is overrated." She brushed past me, her perfume thick in the air, leaving me seething in silence. Later that evening, I saw Jason in the backyard with Dad, laughing loudly as they grilled burgers together. From a distance, it almost looked normal, like we were kids again, and Jason was just the big brother who always got away with everything. But I knew better. That night, I sat in my room going over my evidence again. The bank statements, the screenshots, the text messages, the recording. Each piece was a puzzle, and together they painted a picture of betrayal no one could ignore. Still, doubt gnawed at me. What if Mom broke down? What if Dad defended Jason out of sheer denial? What if the family turned on me for airing dirty laundry during what was supposed to be a celebration? I clenched my fists.
No.
I couldn't let fear stop me. Not this time. By the time the final night arrived, my nerves were stretched thin. Mom had outdone herself. Platters of roasted chicken, bowls of mashed potatoes, pitchers of sweet tea. The long dining table was set with her best china, candles flickering in the center. Everyone was cheerful, buzzing with the bittersweet energy of goodbyes. Cousins swapped stories, kids fought over roles, Dad carved the chicken with theatrical precision. And Jason sat at the head of the table, grinning like a king. Marissa was glued to his side, her laughter sharp and bright. I sat quietly, my hands hidden in my lap, my phone pressed between my knees. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure everyone could hear it. Halfway through the meal, Jason raised his glass. "To family," he boomed. "There's nothing more important than blood." Marissa giggled, clinking her glass against his. The irony made my stomach twist. I looked around the table. Mom's eyes were misty with happiness. Dad's cheeks were flushed with wine. My cousin smiled, oblivious. It was now or never. I set down my fork and cleared my throat. "I'd like to make a toast too." The table quieted. Dozens of eyes turned to me. Jason smirked, clearly amused. I stood, my hands trembling but my voice steady. "This week has been enlightening. I've learned that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about trust. And when that trust is broken, it's worse than any stranger's betrayal." Mom frowned. "Rachel, what are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. Jason shifted in his seat, his smirk flickering. "Rachel," he said, his voice sharp. "Sit down. Don't ruin dinner." I met his eyes, unflinching. "I'm not ruining anything. You already did." Gasps rippled around the table. "What is going on?" Dad demanded, his knife clattering against the plate. I pressed play on the recording. Jason's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Rachel's all bark, no bite. She'll just mope around until the reunion's over and then go back to her boring little life." Marissa's voice followed, dripping with cruelty. "She looked sick this morning. Almost feel bad." Jason chuckled on the recording. "Don't. She's always been dramatic. Besides, what's she going to do? Call the cops on her own brother? She wouldn't dare." The room was silent except for the sound of their laughter echoing through the phone. Mom's face went white. Dad dropped his fork. My cousins exchanged wide-eyed glances. Jason shot to his feet. "This is out of context," he barked. I pulled out the printed bank statements and laid them on the table, page after page of withdrawals draining my account. "Is this out of context too?" Marissa's face flushed red. "You can't prove it was us." I held up my phone again, showing Jason's smug text. "Keep your mouth shut, sis. No one needs to know. We'll pay you back someday." "Maybe." The room erupted. Mom covered her mouth with both hands, tears spilling down her cheeks. Dad's face turned crimson, his jaw tight with rage. "You stole from your own sister?" he thundered, his voice shaking the walls. Jason stammered, "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," I shouted, my voice breaking. "You stole everything I had. You laughed at me. You treated me like a joke. And you thought I'd stay silent." The room crackled with shock. My cousins whispered furiously, my aunt shook her head in disgust, and my parents sat frozen, betrayed by their own son. Jason looked around the table, his bravado crumbling as he realized no one was laughing anymore. Not even Marissa. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting nervously as the weight of the family's stares bore down on them. The silence was louder than any shouting could have been. For the first time, Jason and Marissa weren't in control. I was. The silence that followed my reveal was crushing, like the whole house was holding its breath. Jason stood there, fists clenched at his sides, his face red. Marissa stared at the table, her lips pressed thin. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd crumble under the weight of the evidence. That Jason would hang his head and finally admit what he'd done. That Marissa would stammer some excuse, even if it was hollow. That they would, at the very least, look ashamed. But shame never came. Jason slammed his hand on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "This is bull." He caught himself, glancing at the kids in the room. "Rachel, you're twisting everything. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to turn the family against me." I stared at him, stunned. "Jealous? You stole my money," he sneered.
Prove it was me.
"Bank statements don't have my name on them. You could have made those texts up. Anyone can fake screenshots these days." The gall of it left me speechless. Marissa finally spoke, her voice icy. "She's doing this for attention. Rachel's always needed to be the victim. She's jealous of our marriage, of Jason's success, of the fact that we built a life together while she what? Works late nights and eats takeout alone." The words sliced through me, sharper than I expected. My cheeks burned, not just with anger, but with humiliation. Mom gasped. "Marissa, how could you say something like that?" Marissa leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Because it's true. She can't stand to see us happy, so she makes up some sob story about stolen money." I slammed my hand on the table. "It's not a sob story. It's my life savings. Years of work, gone because you two thought it was funny." The room erupted into chaos. My cousins murmured to each other. My aunt shook her head, muttering about how disgraceful it all was. Dad stood, his face red with fury. "Jason," he said, his voice booming, "I don't care what excuses you make. That text is your handwriting. Those words are your voice. I raised you better than this." Jason's jaw tightened. "Raised me better?"
Please.
"You've always favored Rachel. She could do no wrong while I got blamed for everything. Don't act like you didn't set this up." Dad's hand shook as he pointed a finger at him. "Don't you dare put this on me. You're a grown man, Jason. And what you've done is theft." Jason scoffed. "Oh, here we go. Dad playing judge and jury like always." Marissa tugged on his arm, whispering, but Jason yanked away. His eyes darted around the room, wild, cornered. "You're all against me," he spat. "Every one of you. You've always looked down on me, treated me like I'm not good enough. Well, guess what? I don't need you. I don't need any of you." The kids were silent now, sensing the tension. My youngest cousin started crying softly. Mom's hands shook as she tried to comfort her. I felt like my heart was being ripped apart. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about watching the boy I grew up with, my brother, turn into someone I didn't recognize. You had a choice, I whispered, my voice breaking. You could have asked me for help. I would have given you some, Jason.
But you didn't ask.
You stole. And then you laughed about it. Jason's face twisted. For a moment, I thought I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. But just as quickly, it hardened into anger. Keep your money, he snapped. If you're so obsessed with it, fine. We'll pay you back. But don't expect me to grovel. Marissa stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Come on, Jason. We don't need to sit here and be humiliated by her little show. She grabbed his arm, but he yanked it free, pacing like a caged animal. Jason, Mom pleaded, tears streaking her face.
Please.
Just admit what you did. We can work through this as a family. He barked a laugh, sharp and bitter. Family? Don't make me laugh. Family doesn't corner you and try to make you look like a criminal. You did that yourself, I snapped, my voice cutting through the noise. Jason whirled on me, his eyes blazing. For a split second, I thought he might hit me. But then he shook his head, muttering under his breath, and stormed out of the room. Marissa followed close behind, but not before shooting me a look of pure venom. The door slammed, rattling the walls. The silence afterward was suffocating. Mom sat down heavily, her hands covering her face. Dad paced, muttering curses under his breath. My cousins looked between each other, shocked and uncomfortable. I sat there trembling, my stomach churning with a mixture of victory and grief. I had exposed them. Everyone knew the truth now. But instead of feeling relief, I felt hollow. Because Jason wasn't just my brother. He was blood. And watching him storm out, refusing to take responsibility, made me wonder if I'd lost him forever. That night, the house was eerily quiet. The cousins left early, murmuring awkward goodbyes. My aunt patted my hand and whispered, "You did the right thing," before slipping out the door. Mom stayed in the living room long after everyone else had gone to bed, staring at the darkened window as though she might see Jason's silhouette coming back. But he didn't. When I finally crawled into bed, exhaustion pulled at my body, but sleep wouldn't come. I kept hearing his words. You're jealous. You're dramatic. You're twisting everything. I knew they weren't true. The evidence was undeniable. But still, they echoed in my mind, taunting me, making me question if exposing him had truly been the right thing. The next morning, I found Dad sitting at the kitchen table, his coffee untouched. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. He's gone, he said quietly, packed up in the middle of the night, took Marissa, and left. I sank into the chair across from him, my chest tight. He stole from you, Rachel, Dad continued. But worse than that, he stole from this family. From all of us. And I don't know if he'll ever come back from it. Tears filled my eyes, but I blinked them away. He thought I wouldn't fight back. Dad looked at me, his expression both pained and proud. And you did. You showed him he couldn't walk all over you. That matters.
It did.
But it didn't feel like enough. Because, deep down, I knew Jason wasn't finished. Men like him never left quietly. The house felt like a graveyard after Jason stormed out. For the first time in days, there was no laughter, no clinking of glasses, no cousins playing tag through the halls. Just silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I thought maybe, just maybe, that was the end of it. That Jason would drive away with Marissa, sulk in his bitterness, and eventually fade into the background of our lives. But I should have known better. Jason wasn't the type to let things go. The morning after he left, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it, my stomach sinking as I read the words. You think you won? Watch your back, sis. We're not done. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Marissa. It had to be her. The tone was sharp, vengeful, dripping with malice. Jason might have been the one to rage and deny, but Marissa was the one who planned, who schemed. And now she was threatening me. I showed the text to Dad over breakfast. His face darkened. We'll block the number.
Don't respond.
Mom, still pale and shaken from the night before, shook her head. My God, Tom. They're our family. How could they do this? Dad set his jaw. Family or not, what they've done is criminal. Rachel, you should call the police. I hesitated. The thought of airing this out in public, of dragging my family name through a legal mess, made my stomach twist. But the truth was, they'd already dragged us through the mud. Before I could decide, another text came. Enjoy your little victory. You'll regret it soon. I blocked the number, my hands trembling. That afternoon, I went to the bank. I wanted to see if there was any way to trace the withdrawals, to put Jason and Marissa's names on the paper trail. The clerk was sympathetic but firm. Unless you file an official police report, we can't investigate deeper. All I can tell you is that the withdrawals were made with your card information. Someone close to you had access. I left the bank with a pit in my stomach. Jason had always been careless with his anger, but Marissa was calculating. She'd make sure their fingerprints were nowhere near my money. When I returned to the house, Mom was sitting on the porch, wringing her hands. Rachel, she whispered, your brother called me. My breath caught. And she swallowed hard. He said you're lying, that you forged everything to make him look bad, that you've always been jealous of him. I laughed bitterly, though it hurt. Of what? His empty bank account? His constant failures? Tears filled her eyes. Rachel, don't. He's still my son. Her words stung. Still my son. As though his blood excused everything. As though the years of sacrifice I'd made, the trust he'd shattered, mattered less because he shared her DNA. I clenched my fists, my throat tight. And I'm still your daughter. Or does that only count when I stay quiet? She flinched, unable to answer. That night, things escalated. I was in the guest room packing my bag, ready to leave early, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart stopped. Through the blinds, I saw Jason's truck. The front door slammed open. Jason stormed inside, Marissa at his heels. Their faces were flushed, eyes sharp with fury. Where is she? Jason bellowed. Dad appeared in the hallway, blocking their path. Get out, Jason. You're not welcome here. Jason shoved past him, his eyes locking on me at the top of the stairs. You think you can ruin me? He shouted. You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone? My hands shook, but I stood my ground. You ruined yourself. Marissa sneered. You little witch. Do you know what you've done? You've destroyed this family. No, I said firmly. You did when you stole from me. Jason's face twisted. That money was just sitting there. You didn't need it.
We did.
We deserved it more than you ever will. The audacity made my vision blur with rage. Deserved? You laughed in my face after taking everything I had. That wasn't need. That was cruelty. Dad grabbed Jason's arm. Get out, before I call the police. Jason ripped his arm free. Go ahead. Call them. See how it looks when they hear your daughter made up a sob story because she's bitter and alone. The words cut deep, but I didn't let him see it. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Already saved everything. The texts, the recordings, the bank statements. You can deny it all you want, but the truth is out there now. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. But Marissa clutched his arm, hissing, Don't let her get to you. She's bluffing. I wasn't bluffing. And they knew it. Finally, Dad shoved them toward the door.
Leave. Now.
Don't come back until you're ready to make this right. Jason hesitated, his chest heaving, his eyes locked on mine. This isn't over, he growled. Then he stormed out, Marissa trailing behind him. The truck roared out of the driveway, tires squealing. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Dad sat beside her, his face pale with exhaustion. I sank into a chair, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone.
It was over for now.
But the way Jason had looked at me, wild, desperate, hateful, told me the truth. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After Jason and Marissa stormed out, the house never felt the same. Mom cried quietly in the kitchen for days, her hands trembling whenever Jason's name was mentioned. Dad grew silent and withdrawn, pacing the porch at night as though searching for answers in the dark. And me? I carried the weight of their betrayal like a stone in my chest. I had thought exposing them would bring relief, maybe even justice. Instead, it felt like tearing a wound wider. But the worst wasn't behind us yet. A week after the reunion ended, I returned to my small apartment. I wanted normalcy again. The quiet hum of my refrigerator, the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the sense that I was safe in my own space. For a few days, I almost believed I could move forward. Then the letters started arriving. The first one was slipped under my door. A plain white envelope. No return address. Inside was a single line scrawled in messy handwriting. "This isn't over, Rachel. You'll regret crossing us." I stared at the note, my stomach churning. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash, telling myself it was just another empty threat. But then another came. This one was taped to my car windshield. "Enjoy your little apartment while you can. We'll make sure you lose that too." My hands shook as I peeled it off, looking around the parking lot, half expecting to see Jason's truck lurking in the shadows. I called Dad that night, my voice breaking. "He's still coming after me." Dad's voice was heavy. "I'll handle it. If he wants a fight, he'll get one." But I didn't want a fight. I wanted peace. 2 days later, my landlord called. "Rachel, I'm sorry, but someone's been calling the office, saying you're behind on rent. They even sent a fake notice with your signature on it. Don't worry, I know it's not real, but you need to be careful." That's when I realized Jason wasn't just threatening me. He was trying to ruin me piece by piece, the same way he drained my savings. It was Marissa's touch, I knew. Jason was reckless, but Marissa was deliberate. Together, they were dangerous. For the first time, I went to the police. I filed a report, handed over the letters, the texts, the recordings. The officer listened carefully, nodding. "We'll open a case. If they contact you again, save everything. Don't engage with them." Walking out of the station, I felt lighter. Not safe, but stronger. Because for once, I wasn't alone. That night, I sat on my balcony, staring at the city lights. I thought about everything I'd lost, not just money, but trust, family, the brother I once adored. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I felt a flicker of something new. Resilience. Jason could keep trying to drag me down, but I was done being his victim. Weeks passed. The threats slowed, then stopped altogether. I later learned the police had contacted Jason directly. He denied everything, of course, but the warning must have spooked him enough to back off. Marissa's social media posts told their own story. Photos of weekend trips, flashy clothes, dinners at expensive restaurants. It was clear where my money had gone. But behind the smiles, I saw cracks, the comments from mutual friends growing sharper, people whispering about the scandal that had unfolded at the reunion. Their laughter was gone. Their reputation was crumbling. And me? I started rebuilding. I took on extra projects at work, slowly replenishing what had been stolen. I met with a financial advisor, who helped me set up protections to ensure no one could ever drain my accounts again. I even began looking at small condos, determined not to let Jason's betrayal steal my dream of owning a home. One evening, Mom called me. Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Rachel, your brother reached out. He wants to talk." My heart skipped. "And
He says he's sorry."
he says he wants to make things right." I closed my eyes. The little girl in me wanted to believe it, wanted to imagine Jason walking through my door with open arms, ready to be my brother again. But the woman I'd become knew better. "Mom," I said gently, "sometimes sorry isn't enough. Sometimes people show us who they are, and we have to believe them." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Mom whispered, "I just don't want to lose my son." Tears stung my eyes. And I don't want to keep losing myself. When the call ended, I sat in silence, letting the truth settle in. Jason might always be my brother by blood, but he was no longer my family by choice. The real turning point came a month later, at a small gathering with my closest friends. We were sitting around my kitchen table, eating takeout, laughing over silly stories. And for the first time in months, I felt free. I realized then that family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who choose you, who stand by you without asking for anything in return. Jason and Marissa had stolen my savings, but they hadn't stolen my spirit. They hadn't stolen my ability to trust again, this time wisely. They hadn't stolen my determination to build a life that was mine, untouched by their greed. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the laughter around me, and smiled. Because here's what Jason never understood. Money can be taken, trust can be broken, but strength, the kind that grows from betrayal, can never be stolen. And in the end, that was my greatest revenge.